Hello and welcome to the first Her Version Impact panel of 2022. We are opening this year with a bang in the female community, speaking about everything motherhood. This will be a great broadcast for you to listen in on if you are an expecting mother, a new mother, if you have 6 little ones running around the house, and everything in between. If you are a dad, we would love your support also. We have women from all walks of life opening up about the smiles, the challenges, the laughter, and the realism of what motherhood is. I am super excited about this impact panel. Let's jump right in. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like hit the subscribe button and follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. This will be an interactive forum, and any comments or questions you post will possibly be selected to go on screen for the ladies to engage with you personally. Come with questions, worries, difficulties, and we will help you navigate through it. If you are watching this live or on the hashtag replay, we would appreciate if you share this to your followers so we can expand our reach. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to introduce our ladies. So we have several women here from all walks of life, and I would like each of you to introduce your name and where you are from, starting with Nicole.
Hello, everyone. I am Nicole Gayatri. I am from Costa Rica.
Hi, guys. I am Maureen Scanlon, and I am from Mesa, Arizona.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel Ulster, and I am from sunny South Florida.
Good morning. My name is Erica Hall. I am a mother of 6. I've been doing it for 25 years, and I am in Ohio.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tori Brame, and I am a mother of a 3.5-year-old. He's my only kid, and I am in Charleston, South Carolina.
Is that everybody? Charmin, did you go? Sophia?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sophia. I think I have an echo.
You do have an echo. Where are you from, Sophia?
I'm living here in New York City. I'm a hashtag boy mom.
Yes. Charmin? We can't hear you.
I'm Sherman Johnson, mother of 5 and from Bucks County, Pennsylvania.
Yes. All right, ladies. Well, thank you so much for joining me this early on a Saturday. I do hear a little bit of reverb, so if you have headphones, you might want to put them in because it might be you. I am going to start this podcast off giving Nicole the floor today. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to each go around, have about 10 to 15 minutes of floor time where we're going to actually host and hold the space for other women to share their stories and experiences on motherhood by first asking a question. So Nicole, introduce yourself, let us know what you do, and then let us know your question.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole Gayatri. As I said, I'm here in Costa Rica. I am also a boy mom to a 4.5-year-old son. I'm a single mama here, and a lot of the work that I do is teaching other moms how to transform through self-devotion to create their dream life so that they can live their true fuck yes. And yes, I swear. I use curse words, and I know that's not for everyone, but not everyone is our cup of tea. One of the things that I really wanted to talk about today on this panel is motherhood can be a difficult journey in the beginning. As we all know, there's a lot of sleepless nights when you have a newborn, and it's probably even harder when you have more kids around. I haven't ever gone through that myself, but I think that's one of the things that maybe isn't as talked about in our society, or at least it wasn't before I had a child. I wasn't really aware of how common postpartum and other postpartum issues can be. And for myself, I definitely went through a lot of them. Some of them being the fact that I am a single mama. I had hired someone to come in and help me with my child because I'm living in Costa Rica. I don't have other family here. And that person wasn't actually supportive. They ended up being both mentally and emotionally abusive towards me. So it not only was I dealing with the hormones that shift and change after having a child, not only was I dealing with the sleep deprivation after having my child, but I was dealing with someone who was consistently telling me, "You're the most terrible mom there ever was." And my own brain was taking these things in and believing that at times and then repeating it back to me. So I was in constant worry. I was very depressed. And so I'm wondering from all of you, did you go through any of these different postpartum issues when you had your child? And if you have more than one child, was it different each time? I would love to hear from you because I think it's something that in society we need to stop making it a taboo and start talking about it more so that moms are ready to deal with these issues and know where to go for support. Anyone want to speak on that? Anyone?
I'll go. I'll go first. I'll go first.
Okay,
I
Erica,
don't
thanks.
mind. I love that you brought up this question because nowadays we are talking about more things, right? When I first had a child was a long time ago, doing it 25 years. And so we weren't even talking about those things. Like motherhood was one of the things that it just happened. Like my mom just had kids. We did life. Nobody was like, here's what motherhood is like. Here's what you're going to go through, much less telling us what was happening to our bodies when we were pregnant and then afterwards. So some of the things that I also noticed was it's not just postpartum. Like there are these periods of time that your body is still adjusting to what your kids are going through, and it has to adapt. I've noticed now because I'm past those years. Our youngest is now 5, but with 5 kids still living at, going through life and living at home, now I have girls going through hormones and my body's changing. And I was like, oh, wow. So in the discussion of postpartum depression, I think it is motherhood depression. I think it really has more to do with our hormones as general, because even as we have a body, our body's depleted, we need to refill, but our body depletes more when we are taking care of our family because we're not taking care of ourselves. So I think it's like this whole long discussion that we just need to always have. Like, how do you feel about motherhood today? I think it fucking sucks and I want them to all go away. Okay, that's okay. You're allowed to feel that. How do you feel today? Oh, I love them. They're the best things of my whole entire life and their kid, right? Like those is a series of emotions. And so if we don't talk about it, then we're holding it in and we think there's something wrong with us. There's never anything wrong with a woman. Like even labeling it postpartum depression makes it sound like we have some illness. I don't have an illness. I'm a fucking woman who has hormones and this is natural. And all of your diagnoses is what makes it sound like we're ill.
I
And
love
as
that,
an
Erica.
ill,
Thank
disabled
you.
person, I'm sorry that's how I feel about it. I don't mean to offend anybody because what you are going through is very, very valid. And some bodies, your body needs assistance and we all need assistance in different ways. So don't ever feel bad for getting assistance. But the number one person not supported in this universe is a mother, especially a mother who just had a baby. I was in situations where I had no time to recover because I was in abusive situations. I didn't even get to make to my 6-week checkup without certain things. So there's a lot that we're dealing with, much less just raising a tiny little human being. And I think we need to give ourselves a little bit of a break and say, guess what? If we were really doing this right, moms wouldn't do anything but take care of that baby for the first 3 months. Nothing. That's how it used to be done. She didn't get up. She didn't make food. She didn't take care of other kids. She didn't clean her house. She didn't do anything. For 3 months, all she did was take care of herself and her body, and other people took care of her. It was tradition, and we've gotten so far away from that. So if we want to do anything, every mom should have the first 3 months off, like completely. But that's, is not possible, right? So we have to talk about it. We have to ask for support. We have to stop thinking that there's something wrong with us and that we're sick or ill. We're not. It's just a name that men put to it so they can explain what's going on. Because a woman didn't name these things, you guys. I mean, I looked it up and I did my research. They didn't name it. So that's just my opinion. Anybody else want to chime in?
Yes, Tori, please go ahead.
So I have lupus. I'll talk about that when it's my turn. But I was flaring my entire pregnancy, and it was touch and go the entire time. And the only thing that I was focused on my whole pregnancy is I want to be alive and I want my kid to be alive. And like so much as to the point, it was like 3 days before my induction date, and I had the first thought, like in my entire pregnancy, oh my God, I hope he's cute. Like I hadn't even considered what he would look like. And usually, you know, people get the line on the stick and they're like, what are they going to look like? You know, are they going to look like me, their dad, you know, stuff like that. And that had not even occurred to me. And so after he was born, I there was some part of me that didn't expect to make it that far. And so when he was born, I kind of let go. And I had so many thoughts like, you know, if I'm a bad mom, they're going to take him back. Like the hospital's going to take him back or something like that. Just completely irrational. And I went through about 5 months. Oh, and because of my lupus, I couldn't nurse. Like I tried really hard, but like the most I ever made in a day was like 7 ounces or something. And it's just not supportive. So when for those 5 months, I was struggling with so many things, and it's hard to attribute. I had so many things going on. Like my relationship was on the rocks. I also, we're divorced now. And, you know, I had so many health things going on. So like, it's hard for me to go back and be like, yes, that was postpartum depression. But when I was in it, I could almost see myself above it where like, you know, I did have like suicidal ideation, and there were times where I was like actually at rock bottom. But like the whole time I could kind of see myself above it. And I was just like, well, what are you going to change? Like, this is your opportunity to see what isn't working and you can change. And that time, like, even though it was rock bottom for me, it like rocketed me up to where I am now, which is, you know, like if someone is treating me poorly, they're not in my life. Like, you know, it's, you know, having that self-worth, but without actually getting to that rock bottom, I never could have had that. So it's like, you know, it's very sad. It's very hard for everybody, but like, if you use it correctly, it can be one of the best things that's ever happened to you.
I love that you brought that up, Tori, because I think my experience too helped me with setting boundaries, which are so important in motherhood, right? knowing both your worth and where you need help and when you need to ask for help. Boundaries and being able to ask are so important. Anybody else have anything you want to talk about? Yes, Sabrina.
So my story is a little bit different, I think, than maybe some of you, but I got pregnant at 20 out of wedlock, and I was born and raised as a Jehovah's Witness. So for those of you that don't know, when you have sex before marriage, you are disassociated from everybody that you know. So I was completely cut off from my entire family and from my entire church. And the Jehovah's Witnesses only hang out with Jehovah's Witnesses. So I didn't have anybody outside the church that I hung out with. So when I got pregnant, I was literally isolated besides myself and my son's father. So I often wonder whether or not I endured postpartum, because there were so many other emotions going through my head, as far as being sinful, as far as being unloved, dirty, unworthy, zero self-esteem. I go back sometimes and I look at pictures of myself when I was pregnant, and I'm going to start crying, but there was so many pictures where I was sad before I even had my son. You could just see it on my face. I couldn't even smile. But, I wanted the pictures of the growth of the belly, and what he looked like. But there was so much sadness around my pregnancy. And, even when I gave birth to my son, we called my parents to tell them, that I had a son, first baby of the family, first grandchild. He was a boy. and to tell them, that he was born, how much he weighed, what time, and all of the goodness that's supposed to go along with having a baby. And I got no call back, no response. And, obviously you can tell it's heavy, it's heavy. Still sometimes, the family is now together and everything's fine. But, there's still frustration in that. And, not that it matters, kind of like what Erica said, like, does it, postpartum or not postpartum, like just stuff that we deal with, who knows? But I do often wonder how much of it was postpartum that I just didn't know about, the feelings of wanting to drop my son off at a fire station, the feelings of being so angry, being so mad, being so alone, feeling like I had nobody to help, nobody to assist. I couldn't even ask questions to people because I didn't have anybody. So, I guess the reason I'm speaking is because, for those of you mothers out there who are dealing with something similar, where you are totally isolated from friends or from family, or whether you're just putting up boundaries, there are going to be feelings that come up. There are going to be feelings and frustrations and sadness, and you're not necessarily going to have somebody to talk to. And, I recommend journaling. I recommend, videotaping yourself through all of that, so you can kind of go back and kind of remind yourself of how strong you are or how strong you were, because you can make it through. My son is 17 years old now. He's gorgeous. He's so confident. He's so outgoing. He's so full of love and laughter and life. And, that was a decision. That was a decision I had to make early on whether or not I wanted to play the victim, the woe is me and look at everything that's happened to me in my life, or to parent through power and to parent through confidence and love. And I chose love.
That's so beautiful, Sabrina. Thank you so much for sharing. And I love that. But love is always the answer, right? When we're losing our minds, no matter what it's because, love is always the answer. Christine, did you have your hand up to speak next? Please go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. So I'm Christine Del Negro. I am an EFT practitioner and a life coach, and I work with women to help them create more joy in their lives. And one of the things that kind of connected for me, Sabrina, when you were talking, first of all, I can't even imagine. I think that must have been just so incredibly hard. But I do think that motherhood is really lonely. And I think that we don't talk about that either. Like when I was a stay-at-home mom for several years, and I had mom friends and my kids, we did play groups and all of that. But I felt like there was this, the town that I lived in at the time was a fairly affluent town, kind of like, appearances were kind of a big thing. And so I never felt like I truly connected with the other moms, in that I could really talk about like the fears and the anxieties. I mean, a little bit, but not so much. And so I think that is a really like important thing to know if you're going into motherhood, that it can be really lonely and isolating, especially if, well, my experience is as a stay-at-home mom. I think if you are a working mom and you're in an environment where, either it's a male-dominated environment or other people don't have young children at home, it's isolating in that way because people can't relate and you're feeling all of this pressure. So, but I think it's really important to find connection somewhere, even if it's, sometimes I think like online or in, some other group where it's not people. Sometimes I think when you're trying to connect locally with people, there is that idea of like keeping up appearances. And so if you're talking to somebody, 3,000 miles away who you're not going to meet in person or not anytime soon, it's easier to kind of connect and say, wow, this is so hard. And I feel like my life is, in free fall right now and I don't know what to do. So I just think that that's a really important thing for mothers to keep in mind, that you want to find connection wherever you can. And then the other thing is when you have your second child, or, you know, what I have 2 daughters, and I like rationally knew that there were going to be adjustment issues, but I did not expect the level of anger from my older child, who was an incredible older sibling, like completely attentive and loving. But I was also dealing with these incredible temper tantrums, the likes of which I had never seen before. And so then I thought, oh my God, I'm doing something wrong. You know, there's a problem. And, you know, I spoke to a therapist who's like, nope, pretty much normal. But I just did not expect that level of rage, and no one had prepared, you know, for as much as they talk about it, I didn't expect it in the way that I saw it. So that's just something else I want to say to moms who are having a second child. It's not, you know, it's not unusual to really experience, like, see a real shift in your child that you might not have expected.
Thank you so much for sharing, Christine. Maureen, go ahead.
I think I'm probably the one with the oldest children here. So I have older children and grandchildren. And, you know, Sabrina and I have a very similar story with motherhood. And I was also sort of disowned. I got married at 18 and had my first at 19. And one thing that I don't hear, and if you don't have a close relationship with your mother who walked you through motherhood or what to expect, is that no one tells us to trust ourselves. And that is the biggest thing for me, was just walking through motherhood and going, you've got this. Trust that your instincts are going to kick in. Trust that you are, like you said, love is always the answer. If you love this child, you're going to make mistakes. We don't have to be perfect, but it was always, whether I was with the kid's dad or after our divorce, and I was also a single parent, it was just being able to say to myself, you know what, you've got this, and we're just going to take this day by day and just trust that, you know what, they're alive. Okay. They're going to bump their heads. They're going to get sick, you know, but trust that you can do this. You can absolutely do this. I think, you know, really instilling into new moms, just trust your instincts. You don't have to be perfect. You're going to figure it out. You're going to make mistakes, but you're going to figure it out, and you just get better as they go. And trust me, bigger kids, bigger problems. I have a 30, 31, 29, and 23-year-old, and I'm still struggling. And I'll get to, now I'm actually doing grandchildren and have taken in a grandson. So that'll be one of my questions moving forward. But it never goes away. You're always figuring it out as you go. But just trust yourself. You've got this. You've got this.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing, Maureen. That was great. Nicole, thank you so much for taking the floor there and hosting. I would like to give the floor to Christine. Introduce yourself. Tell us what you do. Well, you already kind of did, but and then let us know your question.
Okay. Hi, I'm Christine, and I've joined a little late. I had some technical issues this morning, but I'm really happy to be here. So the question that I've been mulling over is sort of related to what Maureen was talking about in terms of, like, the pressure that we all put on ourselves as mothers, and the pressure that society puts on us as mothers. There's this like paradigm of the perfect mother, and I think like a big piece of that is I get frustrated with this idea. It's like mother is martyr, that like if you're going to be a good mother, you've got to basically like give your blood, sweat, and tears to your children 24/7. And I think like one of the things that I noticed around the holidays was I kept seeing these posts on social media about the exhausted mom up till 3 a.m. wrapping gifts and, you know, doing all of these things while her husband, and it was, so there's also this like resentment towards men, which is another part of it, but we don't need to get into that. But like while her husband is sleeping, and, you know, all of this, like, and there's like, you could feel the resentment coming through in the post. But yet these mothers felt compelled that this was what they needed to do to be there for their children. And so that's something that I'm a single mom as well. And so I think like boundaries are something that I have always had trouble with, but I've had to learn as a single parent how to really set them. And I certainly struggle with the guilt sometimes, like, and my children are teenagers, so they're not toddlers, where I have to say to them, like, I need you to take this on because I can't right now. Like, I'm working, whatever. I need the dishes cleared from the sink or the dog walked or whatever. And I still feel guilty about it, even though I rationally know that's absolutely ridiculous. But so I think that's the question, is like, how do you see the role of mother? Like, do you struggle with that? Like, do you feel like you have to give it all? And then what are we modeling for our children, whether sons or daughters? Like, is that what we want for them? So it's kind of a messy question, but Nicole.
I think it's such a great question, Christine. As I mentioned, I go by the Abundance Genie, helping people to live this abundant, beautiful, fuck yes life. And it's one of the things I work with my clients the most is like, what do you really want and need, and how do you really need to be supported in your life? Whether you're a mom or not, but it's so important for mothers to write that list down and be like, you know what? I have a hard time getting to the dishes every day, and I feel really guilty about it. And like, every day that I try to go to bed, I feel like I have to clean in the whole house and get everything done. And it's like, we don't need to do that. We don't really need to do that. So I think as a society, or as mothers even, we need to kind of step up and maybe use social media or our own voices with our own communities more to stop putting that pressure on one another. Like, I feel like every time I go to someone's house, before I walk in, the woman is like, please excuse the mess. And it's like, we shouldn't have to say that to one another.
Mm-hmm.
We have people who live in our house, and the second that we clean things, they make it a disaster once again. We all know this, right? Like, it's going to happen. So let's stop putting that pressure on ourselves, number one. And as a society, let's stop putting that pressure on each other. And really, like, just, what do I need help with? And I, my child, when he was like 2, I had him doing some chores already. What is he capable of doing? And of course, you need to figure out which ones are age appropriate and what they're actually capable of doing. But even when it comes to cleaning up his own toys, he knows that when he finishes playing with something, he needs to put it away. But we make that a game. Were we playing with dinosaurs? Great. Now they need to stomp their way back home, whatever it might be. But I have to, again, as a single mom, I have to have him help me as much as possible. And I think that gives him a sense of responsibility as well. And for families to do that, if you do have a partner, sit down with them and say, like, great, you work all day or you do this or whatever, but here's the list of things that need to get done in the house. Now we need to delegate that out to people. And if we don't have people to delegate that to, can we financially afford to bring someone in who can do that, so that we can all feel supported? Because I'm huge on spending my money wisely so that I can have a mentally abundant life. Feeling mentally and emotionally supported is huge. And so that's worth every dime of the cleaning lady who comes twice a week to help me with my house, right? Because otherwise it's not getting done.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Glennon Doyle has a quote, which is make the invisible visible. And you can use it in relation to a lot of different things. But there was a podcast that I listened to where she was talking about, like, sitting down with your family and saying, like, these are the things that I think need to get done that I do. And, like, how are we going to divvy it up? And what can we let go? Like, does it really matter if you have, if your furniture is dusty for a couple of days? Like, who cares, right? But like this, letting go of that idea that we have to be perfect all the time. And I think you're right. Like, I think it is exacerbated by motherhood, but it's certainly something that's put on women, just as a gender in our society, that women are responsible for all of this stuff, and we need to let that go. Erica.
So, good morning. So one of the things that I've utilized my time talking to women about is establishing a better over perfect mindset. And when you get to that point, and there's ways to do it, steps to do it, but when you get to that point, then you're really only comparing to yourself. It's like, okay, this is my baseline. So you have your bare bones, and what can I do just a little bit better? Okay, I can do this. And where it starts is evaluating expectations. Most of the things that we've all talked about, and Christine, that you even brought up about the posts that people are doing, is because they have either learned an expectation or it's an intrinsic expectation that they've put on themselves because it came from somewhere. They
Right.
do exist, right? Each of our expectations come from a different source, but really evaluating, what type of mom do I want to be? What are my expectations? What type of home do I want? What are my expectations? Relationships. What do I want from other people? And really setting that list and going, okay, is this manageable? And if it's not manageable, you better start removing some of your expectations, because you're the one creating this infamous, this has to be done and it has to be done a certain way. You are the only person doing that. Nobody else is going this, no, as much as you are, right? So especially in our heads, as we're taking on, and it was either a choice given to us or a choice that we had to make. We became mothers, right? And so we have other humans to take care of. Well, what do we want them to learn? Well, life responsibilities. Dishes always exist if you plan on eating. So you better suck it up and figure out how to get your house at least halfway decent, or you're going to get sick. Like, these are things that will make you ill if you don't do them. These other things, who knows? But, you should do it every once in a while, right? Like, really, really giving them a baseline. So at least when all hell breaks loose in our lives or in their lives as they're growing up, they know where their bare bones is. Okay, if I just get these things done, we're managing. And that's important. Where's your manageability level, right? And then once you have those, you have very clear vocations in your life, because we are multivocational women. Every woman is, every person is, but we're going to talk about women because we have more vocations, way more vocations than men. It's documented, right? Just is. So then you set those expectations and those vocations, and now you can say, okay, what am I managing well? I'm not going to mess with those. So I clean my house and I'm okay with it every once in a while. I'm not going to worry about it, because right now I'm really putting my efforts into being an outstanding mom, or my efforts into promoting my career, or this, or I really need to work on a relationship. Not everything has to be at this point that you're working on, because you've worked on getting them to a manageable level. You're like, I'm not messing with this. This is what my home looks like. This is how it runs. You don't like it. I'm managing this home. Go find a different one. Like, it's really that attitude, even for yourself. This is my home. This is what I'm managing, right? So those are some of the suggestions that I implement, and I help other women implement in their lives. So
I love that. And I think so much of what you're talking about is like self-love and self-acceptance, which is the thing that I always start with my clients. Is if we have to love and accept ourselves right where we are. Okay, so my house is a mess. It doesn't mean I'm a terrible person. It means this is something that I want to work on and I want to change, and I need to figure out what is going to work for me and what my expectations are. So I everything you said just completely resonates. And I love this idea of your sort of baseline that you have, so that, okay, I'm here, and, maybe I'd like to get here, but like, I'm good where I am right now for now. And I can choose the area that I'm going to focus on.
Yeah. So you set your bare bones. Those are your bare bones. Your baseline is your bare bones. And then anything you're doing to improve those bare bones is your better bare bones. And you're doing one thing to better it. And it's really cool to listen, because then how easy is that to say? That's my bare bones. That's about all I can do right now. Right. And so give you that terminology to remind yourself, because in that self-love and what you do with women, we need retemeries that we put on our minds, which is retain to memory. Another phrase I use in what we teach is to retain to memory, so you can recall it any point in time. And that helps develop that self-love, because you're like, I have systems that I can put into place. I have methods and things that I can tell myself and say, I'm managing. It's the best I can do. When somebody asks me how I'm doing, like Tori, I have autoimmune illnesses, but I have a genetic illness that is crippling my body, but I still want to function in life. And so people ask me, how are you doing? I'm managing. That's the best I can tell you. Not okay. I'm not fine. I'm not good. I'm not great. I'm not wonderful. I'm managing. And it gives me a sense of, I'm managing. That's a good thing, right? I'm managing. It doesn't sound bad. I've got this, right? It's the same attitude that Sabrina, you said to us. You've got this. When push comes to shove, you're made to do what you are doing, and you've got this. So it really is. It really helps us. All these things that we're saying. You guys are wonderful women. I just have to say that.
Oh, Maureen and then Rachel.
I'll make it quick, Rachel, since I've already spoken. But I have the advantage of the hindsight is 2020 because they are adults, my children. And I would just want to say this: who's judging your house? Who's judging your parenting? You are. You're harder on yourself than anybody else is. And as my children now are adults and they give me feedback about their childhood, because I was in sort of a chaotic marriage and it was domestic violence and abuse. The only thing I could control was my environment. So I was very OCD. And as my children have, given me feedback as adults, what I realized is don't sweat the small stuff. It's all small stuff. What they remembered was the time I spent with them. They didn't remember a big trip to Disneyland. They remembered going to the park with mom after dinner and feeding the ducks. They remembered me sitting down and playing Barbies. You're judging yourself harder than anybody else is going to judge you. So have some ease and mercy on yourself and just know that when they're older, they're going to come back and just say, I just remember the time you spent with me. I just remember that you guided me in the best way. You gave me morals, you gave me values, and I'm a great, caring human. The rest of it, dirty dishes, dirty rooms, purple hair, teenage crushes, trust me, none of it matters. And later on, you're going to be very, very proud of yourself that, yeah, I did the best that I could, and they're good humans. And so, yay me. Pat myself on the back. Rachel.
Oh, you're muted. You gotta unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. Rachel here. And I'm just absorbing every single thing you guys are saying. And Sabrina gave us a group where I feel like we're all aligned. And what I was feeling from gathering everything, I really resonated with you, Erica, is for me, when I'm thinking about all these situations of what I should be doing versus what I'm doing and how it's going to look to the outer world, and then the resentments come up. So for me, I keep in check the responsibility over resentments, because if I'm feeling a certain way, it's nobody else's problem. I'm creating it inside of me. So if someone's critiquing my house or the way I look or the way I raise my child, or I'm getting a resentment at my husband because he refuses to load the dishwasher, who's creating that feeling? I am. And so the only one that's going to be able to find peace is me. And so I have a choice. I can either walk in and drag whoever it is, I'm single, but if I did have that guy over there, I would grab him and say, it's your turn to do the dishwasher, or I would just do it because it's the path of least resistance. And so for me, the art of allowing has turned me from being that woman that has to be perfection and gets really upset when things don't go my way, to complete acceptance and trying to really live in this moment, because truly it's all we have. One moment I'm 26 years old cooking dinner and my mom dies in a car crash. In that instant, my whole life changed. What if I had had a resentment against her? She was my best friend, right? I would still be regretting that today. So how we're feeling now is not only going to keep us calm and peaceful and loving and joyful, but it's also going to bring us into our future that we haven't experienced yet. And so I agree with everyone that, I've got a house that's for sale. I have to get out of it. I just stopped a job and my car lease is over, and the house is a wreck because everything's getting moved. And I have a 12-year-old that I share custody with. And the two of us are just so freaking chill because it always works out okay. All of that stuff is going to work out fine. And I went real estate. It's just horrible. Everything's 10 times more expensive than where I am now. I have no idea how it's going to happen, but I know 1,000% it's going to be, I forget which one said it. I don't know if it was you, Nicole, or I told her maybe, but everything that we've gone through is bringing us to the next level. And my life at 55 has shown me time and time and time again that my worst moments have brought me far higher. And the way to do that is we have to feel the feels. We have to sit in our shit and just sit in it and cry and say, I'm so resentful of that, and this isn't going well, and my future is looking dreary right now, and just cry it out and crumple. And then we get back up and it's gone, and then we're ready for another day. So thank you.
I love that. Thank you so much, Rachel. I can resonate with so much of that. I would love Christine to hand the mic over to Maureen.
Okay.
Hey guys, I'm so happy to be here. I feel this synchronicity with all of you, this connection spiritually. It's just nothing happens by accident. And I love that we're all here together. And I love technology, that we can feel like we're all sitting in a room holding hands, kumbaya. I am a life coach. I am a self-worth integrator and an author. And my purpose is to tell everyone how amazing they are and to make them understand that their self-worth gets them the life that they create. So happy to be here. I am going to lighten it up just a little bit with a fun little question. My daughter, who's 29, she just got married in October in Cancun. She told me in her 20s that when she was a child, so I was really busy and I had a spouse that didn't do anything, basically helping with the children. So I was working full-time night shift as a nurse and just busy. So I'm guessing this conversation happened in one of those moments where I was thinking, how am I going to get grocery shopping in and, get their Girl Scout uniforms done and, that major list of stuff we have. And my daughter said she had asked me in the car, Mom, how do you know you're pretty? And I responded in the absolute worst possible way a mother could do it. And so the point being is, I said, people will tell you. How horrible is that? That is telling her that her self-worth is based on what people do to validate her. Now, of course, being a life coach now, I would, advise anybody else not to say that. And probably the clients that I have had a mom that said that to them. So we're going to say those things. We're going to say things that are, we might not have full attention on our children at the time. We're busy and we're going to make mistakes in the things that we say. And you hope that they either take it and say, ooh, that wasn't good. Or they're going to say, I learned a lot from my mom from this. So my question to everybody is, what is the worst thing you've ever said to your child inadvertently? Of course, it's never intentional, but inadvertently, what did you say that you did not mean to say? Tori.
I have a lovely, spunky 3.5-year-old. And when he had just turned 3, I was trying to put on his PJs and he was trying to play. And I told him very seriously that he needed to get his shit together. And it's probably the worst thing.
I love it. It happens. Mom was tired. Mom wanted him in bed for some self-care time, and it just comes out. Anyone else? Nicole?
Yeah, I think as you just said, sometimes when we get to that point of like burnout and so tired and we're just so ready for that self-care time, or as you said earlier, when we're so distracted, sometimes these things come out and we got to just forgive ourselves for it. But I once told my child just go far, far away and find another family, please. And I found him 2 minutes later with a little bag walking out the door. And I was like, what are you doing? And he was like, I'm going to find a new family. And I was like, no, honey, no. I mean, I think he was only like 2.5 at the time. It was the height of 2020. There was a lot going on. We had no support. And I was just like, okay, come back. Let's sit down. And you said it too. It's like after when we recognize when we've done that, I think the important thing is that we sit back down and we have that we've had the rupture. Now let's repair. Let's have a chat about why I said that, take responsibility, and have that discussion. But gosh, yeah, he took it seriously, and he was packing up to head out with his little sad face on. He wasn't really sure how he was going to find a new family, but he was going to do it because mom told him to. So
breaks your heart. And I think it's really important that moms have these groups where we can share these stories so we can all sort of resonate and go, none of us are perfect. We've all messed up. The teenage years, for those moms who have teenagers, my son, who's now 23 and absolutely perfect, at 13, 14, he was diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder and ADHD. Every morning, it was an hour and a half struggle to get him out of bed. And he would fight me both mentally, verbally, physically. And, I would prepare myself like, oh God, it's morning and here we go. Okay, let me prep myself for the, the monster that he is in the morning. And so he gets up and I try to sort of gently be like, here, get your breakfast. What do you want? And he was just not having it one morning. And I was in my robe and I was buttering my toast. He got mad, yelled, and I just was like losing it. And he would like to slam the door and kick my gravel in the front yard. And I said, don't slam that door when you walk to the bus stop. And of course, that's silly. He's going to do exactly what is annoying me. He slams the door. He kicks the rocks. And I just lost it, you guys. And I literally was walking down the road with the butter knife in my hand with my robe on, following him to the bus stop like, you're such a punk. Why are you so mean to me? And he's looking at me like, you're crazy and you are embarrassing me. But it's just that moment of, oh, I just can't take your behavior anymore. And I lost it. And, looking back at it, we laugh about those situations. So you can look back and laugh at them. But yeah, Sabrina, do you have anything? Because you have a teenager. So tell me any situation you've had where you've said something or done something that you're not proud of, but it's life.
So unlike every story so far told, I did this more than once. And I actually do have a lot of mom guilt over this. I've never asked my son how he felt about this, but like the way that I'm justifying it is I'm hoping that it created like independence within him. But we live in Florida and the thunderstorms can be very scary down here. And I've always had a rule, and I've had many mothers counsel me on this rule, but I have a rule that my son does not sleep with me. And I know that that's like not normal, but I don't like anything or anyone touching me. And I can't, like, I literally can't sleep. So I've always had this rule that my son sleeps in he has his bed and I have my bed. Like, those are the rules of the house. And the thunderstorms have come dozens and dozens of times his whole childhood. And there was probably maybe 10 times over the course of like, from the point he could walk until he was maybe 10, where he would come and knock on my door when the thunderstorms were just horrific. And he was upset. He was like upset and like, Mom, help. Like, I'm scared. And instead of me being coddling and like, oh, come stay with me, and the way probably all moms do it, I did the exact opposite. I didn't even open the door once. And I literally yelled to him, go back to bed. Like, screamed it because it was thundering. And in my head, it's just kind of like, I justify, like, I'm here. I'm in the same house as you. If anything happens, I will be here. But it's now looking back at it, it just seems so cold and so unloving. And I have like a lot of, I should probably ask him one day if he even remembers, but I justify it by saying like, I needed him to be able to handle his own emotions. And if he's scared, if he's nervous, if he's fearful, he has to be able to overcome that on his own and console himself. And and figure out his own coping skills. So that's why I'm justifying it. But I could have totally traumatized him too. I have no idea.
We'll give you a half.
Oh. Oh.
Sophia.
Can you all hear me? Because I have these headphones. Okay, cool. So I'm a boy mom. First of all, my name is Sophia. Hi, I am a survivor of betrayal, trauma, and abuse, and I work with women to help them walk in confidence. So boys are loud. They're just loud, and a lot of times, the morning starts off good, and by the end of the day, everybody's jumping off ceilings, and my stress level was just going like this. So I was trying to think, what have I said? And I don't know if it's what I've said or kind of how I've said it. I've never been a yeller. I was never a yeller. But when my marriage fell apart and I became a single mom, I turned into a yeller. So I get louder because they're loud, and then I get louder, and probably by the end of the evening, I'm just like, shut up, like be quiet. But I've raised my kids to talk a certain way to one another. So I have a baby that he's not a baby, he just turned 6, and so he'll look at me and mommy, you just said stupid. Mommy, you just said shut up. And I'm like, oh my God. So I've come to the moments where I'm yelling, so loudly, and I just go to bed. Everybody just go to bed. Get in bed, brush your teeth, go to bed. And then, they go to bed and I'm sitting there on the couch like, oh my God, like I cannot believe you just, all the mom guilt, you just yelled at them. Like, and I've actually had to go back to them the next morning and say, okay, mommy, sorry, and kind of apologize for the way that I handled the situation. And I'm just like, you know what, that's the best thing that I can do, because they see like I carried myself in a way that I didn't feel, was appropriate for me. And for them to see me to go and apologize, like we all make mistakes, but it's just important to go back and say, hey, mommy messed up, I don't want to talk to you like that. I don't want you to talk to me like that. I don't want you to talk to your brothers like that, So, but like we all do it. We all do it. We're moms and we all have these situations. And I just want them to see like the reality of life, as a mom, but to remember that you can always go back and talk to the person, like that's okay too. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
I love that. It's accountability. You taught them accountability and also your humanness, that mommy is not perfect, and you don't have to be perfect, and that you own when you make a mistake and you come back and just say, hey, we all do this, even mommy who, is the center of their world. So that's a really good lesson. I love that. I think that's important. And to say, my upbringing, my mother told me when I was probably 6 years old, I will never apologize to you. And so that was for you to say that, that's a big deal, because I carried that forward into my upbringing of my children. Is I will always apologize. I will always let them know that mom makes mistakes, and that apologizing is good because you're owning it and you're teaching them you have to own when you do things. And so I don't know what my mom was trying to teach me, but I take accountability. But that was a big deal for me to, I didn't understand why she didn't feel the need to apologize. But, that generation was much different. And I think we've changed so much as moms in these generations and grown so much. So with that, I'll pass that floor over to Erica.
Good morning. My name is Erica Hull. I am the founder of Better Over Perfect and co-founder of Corner Office, and soon to be something else. I'm very excited. I just had an amazing meeting this past week. I've written a book that's kind of went out. It's about a little bit about my story, but more about women in general and what we experience, what abuse really is, what it looks like in our day and time. It's called But That's Not Me. So that was a fun journey. I'm glad that I was able to accomplish that. And the interesting thing is I have found that in motherhood, I have a tendency to not acknowledge all that I am actually accomplishing. because there is no reward system. Like there's no paycheck, there's no bonuses, there's no vacation time, there's nobody coming saying, oh my gosh, it was so great working with you. You did a really great job. Thanks for that presentation. Or, wow, that blew me away, right? Like it doesn't really exist. I mean, yes, we get it here and there when our kids are like, Mom, I love you. You're the best. And, you know, the things that they say. And maybe you get really great support from your partner, but in motherhood, it's a very personal thing. Like it doesn't really matter. They're like, oh, but I love you, honey. You're such a good woman or whatever. It's really internal, right? Like our motherhood and how good and what we're doing. So my question to you guys is, how do you or do you acknowledge your accomplishments in motherhood? And then how do you build yourself up so that there is that reward system? Because it doesn't stop. Like it's not like, oh, I get to report to work from 9 to 5 and I can just leave it. Like it doesn't ever end. Like laundry, it will forever be there. So suck it up, right? Maureen has the adult kids. She said it's like you're still a mom. My oldest would have been 26. I lost my oldest to suicide at the age of 16. So my next one's 21. And so I'm experiencing things that I didn't get to with the first one. I'm like, adult children? What the heck is this? This is a different entity. But also dealing all the way down to 5 years old or, you know, baby. I've been having babies for a long time. So that's my question to you is, do you or have you found your accomplishments in motherhood? Do you record them down? How do you acknowledge them? And then what do you do for yourself to feel that reward or that payback or your paycheck, whatever those terminology that you use? We all use a different terminology. Anybody? Tori, I saw your hand first, and then Christine.
Like Sabrina, I'm a huge advocate for journaling. And I, like, ever since I was pregnant, I have made lists. I was bedridden and then I was on bed rest during pregnancy. Because I went into labor I started contractions at 20 weeks and then I went into labor at 30 weeks. And so I was like on very strict bed rest from 30 to 39 weeks. And then he came out at 39 weeks. So that was great. But at like being bedridden, you can't do anything. And so I felt very, a lot of, and I don't know if it was necessarily my upbringing or my personality or a combination of both, but a lot of my worth is tied to what I can do, what I can produce. And so I would just make lists. And even if it was, I meditated, I journaled, I drank water, like I would make that list for myself. And, even now, I make lists and I check them off. And so at the end of the day, the house is a wreck and, the dishes aren't done, even though I did them twice today. And, like all that, I have so much laundry, like that's Saturday gone. I will look back at my list and I'll be like, no, I did a lot today. Like, even though everything is a mess, like, look at all the stuff I did.
That's awesome. I do the same thing. Like I created a system so that I would know even the mundane things. Got the kids up, fed them breakfast, rinsed it. I read, I drank my water, I took my medicine, I washed my face, like every little thing. It got to the point where I just started listing it all because at the end of the day, I was like, well, I don't feel like I got anything done because maybe it doesn't look, but you were doing all this other stuff. So yes, the lists are important. Christine, what did you want to?
So I don't physically write a list, but I do kind of keep a list in my head, and I always start with self-care in the morning. So even if it's like just 15 minutes, like on the mornings that I have to get out of the house, I'll do 5 minutes of tapping, 5 minutes of meditation, 5 minutes of stretching, and then if I have more time, I'll do more. So that's always that I do that. Like I literally, my feet hit the ground, and I've already done those 3 things. Well, not the stretching, but so that just kind of helps me. I feel like, okay, I've done that. I've taken care of myself, which means I can be like my best self for the day, whatever that looks like today. It may not be my best self ever, but it's the best I can do today. So that helps keep me grounded. And then I also like get feelings of accomplishment when I see my children doing something that I know they've learned from me. So whether it's like like we have a no screen rule at the kitchen, when we eat dinner or at the table, period. And so like if we have a guest and they have a phone, my children will say, we're screen free at meals. And I'm like, yes. Or like if I hear them, if we're in a store and they say thank you or please to the cashier, or, like that kind of behavior, I feel like they've seen it from me. So, and I also like when they don't say that to me, but they say it to strangers, I think, okay, well, you know what? Like if that's the best we can do, like I'm glad that that's what it looks like because I'm a safe place. Not that it's perfect, but like I take pride in that they are going out into the world and they know how to treat people. And then the last thing I do is I just think about when I start to feel like my life is a mess and I'm disorganized and I got to get it together. I think I'm a single mom. I work full time. I and I am building a business. I commute, 4 days a week, like 2 to 4 hours a day. I have two happy, healthy kids. Like I run through the list and then I think about like what I did to get to this place after my marriage fell apart and blah, 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 blah. And so I just sort of catalog that in my head and think, all right, I'm doing pretty well, all things considered.
That's awesome. Sabrina, go ahead.
I agree with everything that everyone's saying, so I'm not going to add to any of that. I'm a list fanatic, just notebooks, and I have a whole planner that I've designed, but just lists everywhere. So I agree with all of that. One thing that I do want to add though is I have implemented years ago a reward system for myself. So those hard to do things, those things that like keep getting put on the next day, like we just keep putting it on the next day to do because we just aren't doing it. I have a reward system for myself, and I literally tell myself, like, if I get these 2 or 3 things that I just keep going from day to day to day done, by the end of the week, there's always just something that I'm, circle, like this has to get done. I reward myself at the end of the week, and it could be as simple as a cupcake. It could be a date night. It fluctuates in money, whatever that is. But I always allow myself some sort of a treat or some sort of a reward, whatever that is, for doing a freaking awesome job at being a human. That's it.
Maureen, go ahead.
I think Nicole's put her hand up like 3 times. Nicole, you go ahead. I'll go after you. Go ahead.
Thanks, Maureen. You're so cute. Thank you. Yeah, I do a couple things. Number one is I reward myself, like if I'm doing the dishes or I'm doing something that I really hate doing, and that's like one of those like mundane mom things that kind of has to get done type of deal, I will set myself up with like, I love Gaia TV and I love certain, so I'll set myself up with an episode. So I'm allowed to like, I don't really do screen time much other than that, unless it's like work stuff. So that's a reward for me because I have to do the stupid dishes. I'll I'll watch an episode while I do the dishes. But another thing is that I like really take self-care very, very, very seriously, but to like the next level. So a reward is like, again, single momming, there's nobody else around to be like, high five, babe, you did a great job today. Thanks for taking care of our kid, So I make sure that I schedule myself like a massage at least every other week, if not every week, or, some time for me to feel like I'm being pampered, like someone is focusing solely on me and taking care of me, because I think that's really important. But on the daily with my child, when we wake up in the morning, we do our gratitudes and we talk about how we want the day to go. And at the end of the day, we do our gratitudes and we talk about the things that we loved. We celebrate, things that we accomplished, as well as looking at what were some ways that we could have done better. Like what happened during the day that maybe we think like, oh, actually we could have done that a little better. And we kind of talk about that too. And for me, I'm silently celebrating when my son is talking about that, because I see him taking responsibility for his actions or me. And I see again, those times when we get to do that, maybe there was a rupture and we have this repair then at that point. So these are the different ways that I'm like celebrating every day of what I have accomplished. And I think Erica, you had said it right, is like, some days I'm just like, well, I brushed my teeth twice today. and I got us fed 3 times. So high five, mommy, you did it. We're still alive and we're thriving. Thank you, Maureen. I'll pass it off to you.
Oh, thank you. I love that. Intention setting, gratitude stacking. That's everything. And I think we all will agree that's how you start your day. One thing, having the adult children, my son being raised by a single mom, and his father treated me really bad, and is still to this day, the way that his father speaks to women is disrespectful. But my son treats his girlfriend like a queen. Excuse me. He treats her like a queen. He's so respectful. He has her on a pedestal. They communicate. They're wonderful. What I take from that is that I used to carry this guilt that I chose a really bad father for him, and that that he saw his father treating me terrible and disrespecting. And so all the fears when he was little that he would go out into the world and mimic what his father did, actually it was reversed. So what I learned from that, to validate myself, back to Erica's original question, is that just because we make mistakes, sometimes our experiences are to help our children, are to help them see what not to do. And so I've been able to remove a lot of the guilt from my children's childhood now that I get to see the results of them as adults. And it's hard when you've got a 3.5-year-old or a 12-year, you don't know the long term. You don't get to see that yet. But trust me, even when you have those experiences, even those negative experiences, it doesn't mean that you're a bad mom, and you don't have to have guilt that you're instilling something in them. There's a lesson to say, don't do that. Don't be this way, or you have a choice to be a different person than this person. So I just wanted to add that the validation, honestly, as the kids get older, for me, has really helped me to say, wow, I felt so guilty for so long. And it has its fallbacks from my mommy guilt. I ended up enabling my adult child for a very long time, which inhibited her growth. And that's something we can talk about more later. But so just know that the experiences that you're having that you have guilt from are not always a bad thing for your child. Sometimes they're a really good thing that they don't have to experience it, but they can learn it through your experience. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a question that says, how do I get over the feeling of guilt for not doing what I think needs to be done? What do I need to say to myself to reassure myself? I think that's a great question. I think some of us have already started to kind of talk about that, as like we feel it, we acknowledge the feeling, but then we also say we have to implement something for us to motivate ourselves to actually get the thing done if it needs to be done, or we need to let it go and say that doesn't actually need to be done, right? So really a lot of that guilt is just that in between of, do I need to do this? Do I not need to do this? Or am I going to feel bad about it? I know personally for me is I started looking at things and going, somebody said it initially, is that we put it on ourselves. Nobody else is judging. That guilt is an internal thing. It is not really an external until it becomes public, right? It's something in the public realm. So most of what we're feeling is very internal, and we think because there's a norm. Sabrina, I don't mean to correct you, but you used the word earlier. It's like, I don't know if that's the normal thing, because you talked about kids sleeping with their parents. There is no effing normal, you guys. That doesn't exist. There is no right way, wrong way to do these things. It's just a way, and it's your way. And so you determine whether you're feeling something or not. So you can say, I don't need to feel guilty about this. Either I need to get it done or I don't need to get it done. I'm not going to attach a feeling to it. And that takes practice, right? That takes intentional practice. And so I think those are some of the things you need to say to yourself to reassure. But anybody else want to help answer Lucy's question? Tori.
So I don't know, Lucy, or any of you, if you're familiar with Alan Watts. Excuse me, frog in my throat. But if not, look him up on YouTube, because his stuff is absolutely amazing. But there's this one video that I always think about when I'm experiencing guilt over everything, that where he talks about viewing yourself like a cloud or like a wave. And he makes the point, like, have you ever seen a misshapen cloud or a poorly designed wave? And then he's just like, you know, whatever choices you make, whatever mistakes you make, you're always going to get another shot. And it's like, and he always says it's all going to come out in the wash. And it's like, I look over my life, you know, even things that, you know, I majorly regret, and it's all come out. Like it's all something new that came from that I wouldn't have experienced if I hadn't gone through that. And so it's like, just knowing that like you always get another chance, and right now is your chance. And so, you know, apologize to your kid if you need to, or, you know, make changes for yourself going forward or something like that. But like, you're that cloud, like you're always going to be different, and just that's okay. Like we're human. That's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Lucy, you're always going to be doing good enough if you're taking care of them and you're participating in their life and you're doing the best that you can in the moments you have. You're doing enough. You're doing enough as a mother. You really, really are. So please, please, please be encouraged in that. But talk about those feelings. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to sit back and go, wow, I was just a really shitty person to my human being. Like, and acknowledging that, apologizing, moving forward. And then also remember, I did a survey this past week because it's come up in some of the conversations that I've been having with women lately. In reality, how much of your childhood do you remember? I mean, I understand some of us went through trauma and we do remember those things, but the day-to-day things of childhood and your relationship with your mother and what she did or did not do, I challenge you to say you don't effing remember. And guess what? Neither will your children. Because in this grand scheme of life, all these little moments that we're tripping up on, that we're giving ourselves on, are such a mustard seed in the umpteenth years. I've been alive for 45 years. Maureen, who said they were 55? So, right, Rachel, thank you. We have, all of these are so tiny, 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 tiny little moments. They are never going to remember it. It does not stand out. So let it go. Let it go. Move forward. Rachel, yes.
I'm sorry, guys. My internet keeps going in and out, and I have to keep reloading. It's raining in Florida. I absolutely love this conversation because as a mindset coach and a spiritual coach, we take on everything that's not real. It's all created up here. None of it's real. We've decided that we want to focus on it. And if we can take it down to the bare bones, just like you were saying, Erica, of what is my child, what do I want him to remember about me? And my answer is always compassion, love, and joy, and truth. Compassion, love, joy, truth. And when I lose my shit, I let him know. For instance, the other day, he went online because we were going to order sushi, this big thing that we do once in a while. And he orders $71 worth of sushi, and I have to pay like this $100 bill for the tip because it's COVID and blah, blah, blah. And I lost my shit. Like, and I don't lose my shit. I'm a yogi, so my shit is like getting silent. I go silent. So he knows if I'm not talking, I've lost my shit. And he didn't know if he should eat it or just look at it or what he should do with this meal. And I just started crying. And I said, Boaz, I want you to enjoy your sushi. His name is Boaz. I said, this has absolutely nothing to do with you. To you, $71 is $71. And I love you beyond. And I started crying. And I said, do you know why I'm crying? And he said, no. I said, because it's so important to feel the feels. And I'm not exactly sure why I feel sad. And I mentioned to you guys everything that's going on. And I too have an ex-husband that I deal with. And it was all coming down that night, and I felt vulnerable, and I just cried and cried. And his remedy was, do you want a piece of my sushi? And we cried and we got over it, and he ate his sushi. And I don't apologize a lot because I don't want him to think it's
You're getting stuck there, Rachel. We'll have to come back to you, Rachel. I don't know. It's Okay, we're going to move on to Miss Tori. Tori, can you take the floor? And once Rachel kind of pops back in, hopefully she'll join us again. Go ahead, Tori.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tori Brame. I have a YouTube that is focusing on invisible illnesses like depression, chronic pain. I personally am a lupus warrior. I've been in remission for 2.5 years now. So I'm really excited about that. And my YouTube is just focusing on go through the same thing. Oh, do you want to jump back?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I'll just tell you my situation first. I would like to make YouTube full time. I have a website that is launching January 24th. And I offer like PDFs to make people's lives, easier and more streamlined and stuff like that. And so like, I would like to turn that into a coaching situation and have that full time. I am also a single mom, and my kid goes to daycare, and his dad is very involved. I do have most of the hours, but I mean his dad is great. He's very involved, and I also work full time, which I work nonprofit, so that takes a very emotional toll for anybody who has done that or knows about that. And then I have a boyfriend, so who I love and I want to spend time with and everything like that. And so it's like I need about 40 hours a day to do everything that I want to, not including sleep. And so as a mother, my kid didn't ask to be born. Like I owe it to him to give him like everything I can. At the same time, all that and self-care, because I still have lupus. Like, even though I'm in remission, there's a lot of things that I have to do for myself to keep myself in remission: working out, meditating, drinking enough water, getting enough rest, everything like that. And if I start to slip, I can feel symptoms popping back up. And so, and also I have a very strict diet, so I have to make most of my food from scratch. So, there's just a lot going on. So my question is, like, a lot of you women are where I want to be. And so it's like, how do you balance everything? How do you justify how you balance it? Just tell me what you did. Sophia. You're muted.
Thank you. I'm just talking. I'm Sophia, and I have Hashimoto's, so autoimmune here.
There you go.
Gluten sensitivity. And I think what I did, I had to let go of other people's expectations and even let go of some of my own expectations that I put on myself. Like what we were talking about before with just keeping up with things. And I think before it was kind of in my mind to do that, but once I got sick and then I started looking at what it was going to take for me to get better, I really had to put some things down. Like I had to say, you know what? I can't do everything. I'm not supposed to do everything. And I had to give myself a break. Like in the most tangible way, I had to give myself a break. Even sometimes, now, like you said, there's so many things that you want to do. And it seems like there are just not enough hours in a day, and then you add being a single parent on top of that. And so I think some days I have my list and everything on my list does not get done, and I just had to say, you know what, that's okay. Did I take care of myself? Are my children alive? Did they eat today? And if I did those things, like, we're good. We're good. So I think I looked at kind of my list, like we were talking about, and what are those top things after myself and my kids? Like, what's one thing or two things that I can do today that are going to make me take my next best step, not like all the way to the end, but my next best step, and focus on those things. And if those things are good, like, we did a good job, So I think really letting go of other people's expectations, my own, and just being okay to sit into that, like, that's kind of the advice that I would start there. So
I love that. Okay, so I'm gonna level with you guys. When I sat back after I stopped talking, I forgot to look at hands. So if you raise your hands, raise them again. So I know Nicole. That's one. You can go ahead.
My answer actually is very similar to Sophia's. I think, and this is work that I do with my clients too, is, looking at your grand picture to start. What are, every aspect of your life, whether it's your business that you're trying to build, your website that needs to get done, your child needs this, you need this for self-care, your relationship needs this, finances, etc. So look at all of those goals. And I like to get really clear on what needs to get done with all of them. So each of them has their own list of like, these are things I need to do to get to that end goal, right? And then each day I take one thing from each of those, right? Just one, and that needs to get done, right? And for the kids, it's the survival basically. I need to keep them alive, but maybe some days we have like a school appointment or a play date or something. But so taking that one thing, as Sophia said, what's that best thing that you can do today? That one thing that's going to get you into that next step there. And then if you can accomplish the one thing from all of those and you still have time, great. Now, what's the next best thing, right? But I like to break things down into the smaller pieces and to not make my to-do list for the day like overwhelming. I only need to do the one thing that's going to really get me somewhere, right? And so I try to take out all the fluff. I know with a lot of different I don't want to say businesses, but sometimes it's like our to-do list is a ton of stuff, right? And not that most of that shit doesn't need to get done today. It doesn't need to get done today. And a lot of it won't get done, right? And nobody's going to die if tomorrow most of the things are still on that list. So decide what the really important things are each day. And as long as you're getting 1% better in each of those areas, then by the end of the year, you've really accomplished something, right? You've gotten 365% better in every area. So instead of putting so much pressure on yourself to get the website done today, what are the two things that need to get done or the one thing that needs to get done on the website today? And if I have more time later, I can get the second thing done. So I think really just prioritizing is number one and not being so hard on ourselves about all of it needs to be done.
I really love that too, like concretizing it, making it solid, like things that you can actually check off. And not just like, oh, I want to build a website. And then it's like this, scary ambient cloud of like, that needs to happen. Maureen?
I love that. I'm on the exact same wavelength as Nicole. And my son has a saying, don't eat the whole hippo, just take a bite at a time. And so it's categorizing. So every day in my journal, I'll put nurturing, connecting, business growth, and anything extra self-care, right? And I even have like a nature one in there. And it's kind of cool because when you categorize it and you do something from each of those boxes, you feel super productive. Well, once those are done, anything you do above and beyond that, I consider an accomplishment. So I feel like, okay, cool. I got all the things I wanted done in each category. So I'm well balanced. And then in addition to that, I accomplished even more. So yay me, and I get a reward. I get to go, get an extra coffee at Starbucks. So I'm right along the same exact lines as Nicole, where it's, you break it up into those pieces. Just take a bite at a time. And every day, because anything you've done in your life, you've taken it a step at a time. And what's cool, Tori, is that you're in this shift where you want it all and you want it all now. And so that leap from the trail to the top of the mountain looks really ominous right now, but it's just every day get on the trail and just keep moving up. And as long as you're sort of chipping away, you're going to feel productive, and all your needs will be met because it's balanced. So thank you.
I love that. That's so good. Erica?
To tie in, one of the ways that you can get to that point is for 3 days, do a daily audit, and pick 2 days in the week and then maybe one on the weekend, and literally write down every single thing you do. Don't change anything, just a normal day. This is how I go through my day. And then you can really start to see, where am I spending my time and how is it being spent? And when I think that all of these things take so much time, wait a second, it only took me 10 minutes to vacuum my house, and I'm making it sound like it's going to take an hour to get done. Well, wait a second, it only really took me 10 minutes to check these emails, and I'm making it sound like it's going to take the whole fucking afternoon. Like, really, really evaluate your day. Do daily audits on you and nobody else, because what you're comparing yourself to is what you think all of us are doing. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's wrong. What you think we have done or what we're currently doing right now, in your head, it's wrong. Love you to death, Tori, but it's wrong. And the timeline that you think we've done it on, that's wrong too. It's just wrong. So
Yes.
Evaluate your days, evaluate your time, how you're spending it, and then start blocking it off and saying, this is how I'm spending my vocations. I'm giving myself this amount of time to spend in all of these vocations each day. I'm going to pick, like Maureen and Nicole said, my one best thing to do today. That's what I'm going to accomplish. Anything else outside of that is a bonus, right? Sometimes I reward myself by sitting down at 9, 10 o'clock and working till 2 a.m. I love it. That is my reward. And I'm like, hell yeah, quiet time. I can like knock out a whole bunch of these things. And sometimes I spend that time sitting and vegging on the television and not accomplishing a damn thing, right? So none of it, in the long run, you guys, none of it really, really, really matters. And we're just giving ourselves a hard time. But there are tactics that we can use to really get ourselves in line with what we want to do and what we are comparing ourselves to. But make sure you're comparing correctly. Okay?
I love that so much. Thank you guys so much. That was great.
Of course. Rachel, we're going to have to hold off on your answer because it's actually your turn. You're going to go ahead and take on the floor. So thank you so much, Tori. I appreciate that question. Phenomenal. And Rachel, we're going to hand the floor off to you. If you want to put your answer in and then introduce yourself and ask your question, you can do that. But you're up.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Rachel Radha Alster. Rachel is my given name. Radha was given to me by when I got consecrated as a yoga teacher when I was living in an ashram. And they're two very different souls. Rachel is very calm and loving and compassionate. And Radha is the one that comes out like you ladies are talking about when we need to get that stuff done. And if someone's walking all over me, Rachel tends to say, it's okay. They know no good. They don't know any better. And Radha's like, oh no, that's not acceptable. You cannot be abused. So I like both of those names. And what I was just going to hold my hand up and say is you can't get it wrong and you're never going to get it done. You know, that seems to be an overriding theme that we all have here. And I float above when I get overwhelmed, because overwhelm is just fear. And the fear acronym is face everything and rise. Just face it and rise and say, it is what it is. It's never going to get done because we're expansive humans. We're always going to be reaching for the next thing. And when we know that, it's just going to keep going. And then my rocking chair theory is when I'm 90, God willing, 100, sitting in my rocking chair with my best friend at the beach, what are we going to be talking about? And what are we going to think was a waste of our time? And the worrying for me is the big one. And feeling that we have to orchestrate and control our lives in a certain way is missing out on all of the universe's gifts. So that's what I have to say about that answer. So my question is, I raised 3 stepkids. I got them when they were 12, 13, and 15. So I helped them grow up. And then when my second stepdaughter was 22, I was 42, and we were trying to get pregnant together. So her daughter is 6 months older than my son. So it's a crazy family. And now I'm divorced, so I'm no longer in touch much with them. They're all grown up, and my son is 12. And so I come from that unique situation where I'm an older parent, which I think is a real blessing for me. He would not have wanted me in my 20s. And, but they get the reward now, Sabrina, of you still having gone through all that. And now you're just getting going for the rest, right? So there's no, like you said, there's no wrong way to do this. So my question is, are you raising your child in a similar way that you were raised? Meaning, do you find the old patterns coming up as we raise our children? because I want to know our involvement mentally and spiritually as to what are the patterns that we notice in ourselves as we're raising our children. And is there one particular value that you hold highest that when he's or she is 20, 30, 40, 50, you're going to say, I did that. I did that. Sabrina.
I absolutely love this question because I did it the exact opposite,
Right.
but it was not easy. Like I said, I dealt with so much early on, baby, and so much just living in so much just unworthiness, just feeling so unworthy as a mother, as a female, as a woman. And basically raising him as a victim and then using my parents' tactics on him because it's the only thing I knew. And there was a turning point for me. So now I'm going to change it here. So I was raised with a lot of rules, Christian household, only one way. There's no gray area. It's just black and white and that's it. And I was never hit though. But because of I shouldn't say but, with where I was as a female at that point, having so much anger and so much bitterness, I started to hit my child probably when he was about 6 months old. And, he would do something and I'd smack him. And there was one point, I don't know how old he was, but I will never forget it. We were sitting on the floor. He was getting all snooty with me. He was maybe like 1 or something. And I wasn't going to hit him, but I raised my hand to do something. I don't know what it was. And he winced. He went like this. And I will never forget it. I literally, my entire mindset of how I was raising my child, so similar to how my parents had raised us. And literally in that second, I changed everything. And instead of yelling, I stopped yelling. I stopped hitting. I stopped reprimanding. I stopped disciplining in the way that my parents did. And I started talking. And I started showing up in love. And I started apologizing for my failures or for things that I had done wrong. And exactly what Rachel said is exactly what I'm dealing with right now. I literally, and he's only 17, right? So many things could still happen. And I'm aware of that. I'm ultra aware that he's only 17. But I literally, I am so happy that I decided to choose love and to choose communication and to choose love and communication. That's really all it is. And, hugging and loving. And he is the warmest. He's 6'2". He's huge. He's 6'2". He works out every single day. He probably weighs 180, 190. He's built, we call him Captain America. He's just gorgeous. But he loves me. He hugs me. He kisses me. He puts his arm around me. And I'm so grateful that I decided to do it differently. I'm so grateful. And the experiment that I was running, right? It was an experiment. It was just I don't know. What if I just do it differently? I don't know what I'm doing, but what if I just do it differently? It has worked out. It has worked out. And I'm so glad I bit my lip. I'm so glad that I when it was like this, that I chose love. It was interesting. It's been very interesting. Okay, that's it. I'm sorry. Rachel's not here, so we're going with Nicole.
Oh gosh, I feel you on all that, Sabrina. So my parents had me as teenagers, and then I had 2 brothers come after me, and I feel like they were really growing up at the same time as us. So the way that they parented was probably the way that they were parented and the way that their parents were parented, et cetera. Right. And so I waited a real long time to have my child. So they had me as teenagers, and I didn't have my son until I was 35. And I swore, I did a lot of work with children before I had my child. So I thought that I knew everything and I was going to be this amazing, gentle, responsive parent and da 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 da. And when my son was going through those toddler years where they really are pushing and testing all the boundaries, I found myself repeating the exact same patterns of yelling and, being like, respect me instead of trying to understand him. And so it's been a real journey for me. And it's funny because my parents actually were just with us for the past 3 weeks. And so I found myself trying to train them through my own actions and behavior with my interactions with my son and the way we communicate and the way we go from love and the way we are curious about why is he doing these things versus just saying, that's not how you do it this way. But it was so interesting to see how when my parents were here, I watched my dad being so critical with even just with my mom and how she does things. And so, and I saw that with my brothers as well. And so I was just like, it was this really beautiful, he said, an experiment as they were here for me to go, I see that would have been my immediate reaction as well. And yet I'm going to not say that. I'm going to come in and say, hey, why are you doing that? Like, oh, actually, that really makes sense. But you know what? Let me see if I can show you another way. And it's just really interesting because it is all an experiment, isn't it? And I think coming from that space of curiosity and love and compassion and communication is just so, so valuable.
This is the 5th time I've been cut off by this internet. I so apologize. Sabrina, that lit up my world hearing that. I mean, you and I know each other pretty well. We went through training together on our certifications. So we've done some serious crying together. And Nicole, I agree too. I grew up with a really tough pilot, and it was his way or the highway. And it took me years and years and years to not seek approval of men. I went through many of them doing that, destroying them because my father kind of destroyed me. I get it. And we can undo all of this, I think, is my big takeaway, is at any moment we can let go of our past and redefine it. It does not have anything to do with why we came into physical now. We take that karma and we do it so that we know how it felt, so that we know how to rise above. And I just absolutely love that. Does anyone else want to hang in? Tori?
So being bedridden during my pregnancy, I had a lot of time to think about what kind of mom I wanted to be. And so I was raised in a very strict Irish Presbyterian household. And so there were a lot of things about that I knew I didn't want to bring into, my mothering. But the main things that I focused on were like, what was the hardest part for me? Like, what was the most anxiety? And it was like, I would always feel very anxious when we were late to something. And so like me getting my kid out the door, like, I mean, it is so streamlined and seamless, and he is never rushed. And like, even when he like doesn't have his shit together and like, we're going to be late before he ever sees me frustrated. Like, that was something that was just really, really important to me. And then I also thought about like what my parents did that I really loved. And one thing is, so my parents, they had 6 kids, and for 15 years, they always had a kid in the bed. Like, they co-slept when they were infants, and then they just always had a kid in the bed. And it's like, my kid is, and then even when we left, like even when we moved out or whatever, my dad always said to each one of us, he looked us straight in the eye, nobody else is around, and he said, you can always come home. And so, like, after my divorce, he reminded me of that. He's like, you can always come home. He's in New Hampshire. I was in Indiana. I wasn't going to go home. But, like, that is another thing that I always want to give to my kid is, like, I am always here for you. And so I feel like my parents did a really good job of that, and I wanted to pass that on as well.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I was brought up really old school also, like I mentioned, and there was never apologies, and I kind of walked on eggshells, and so I tended to date men that I had to walk on eggshells, But my son, at 12, he still falls asleep in my bed all the time when we're watching movies, and I'm never kicking him out. I don't care. He's going to walk out voluntarily because it's his decision to walk out. I got this huge freaking bed, and I'm not dating, and so we just go up there and we watch movies and we have a great time. And someone modeled that for me. A girlfriend did that with all 4 of her kids, and they are the most well-adjusted, beautiful children. So I'm never kicking my kid out until he walks away. Anyone else want to say anything about? Hi, Sharma. Did I say that right?
Yes, it's Charmin.
Hi.
I'm like Maureen. I have I have 5 kids. I was 18 when I got married and 19 when I had my first. He's now 28, and the youngest is 16 and a half. So most of them are adults, but I was raised in a really strict, black and white. My dad, like I was taught to not trust my own voice. He had the only word.
Yeah.
So I feel like I grew up and not really like finding my worth through like the man that I was in 2 toxic marriages, and giving my voice away, not really having my voice, or really having that strong self-awareness. So as a mom, I wanted my kids to have their voice, and so we have conversations. It's not. I grew up and it was like, I'm the dad because I said so. And that was the end of the conversation. Whereas when I come in conflict with the kids, we talk about it, and to see them as adults now and they have a voice and we can have conversations, and this is how they feel and their own self-awareness that comes out. Like they know who they are. And I'm constantly amazed at how young they were, and to see that self-awareness in them, that they know who they are. And I guess that's when I give myself a pat on the back that I did something right, to give them, so they know their voice. Like I raised them in the opposite way of how I was raised. I had made that choice early on at such a young age. Yeah. And now I'm getting to see that as a young adult.
Well, you know what's so am I having reverb?
You're fine.
Okay. When I listen to all of you, we have all totally changed behavioral patterns to get to where we are today. Yeah. And we all deserve hugs, virtual hugs, because that's not easy. Sometimes you got 10, 11, 12, 20 generations doing the same crap over and over and over. And in order to say that you want to expand and reach higher consciousness, you have to realize you're not doing it right now. And that's something that very few people want to admit, is I don't know what I don't know. And that I know very little. And so I'm going to be humble enough to say that and open my heart and listen. And I think that's, obviously Sabrina picked a really collective group of like-minded people.
100%. Hey, Maureen, we're gonna we're going on to Miss Sophia to take over the floor here. I do want to acknowledge those of you that are watching live. We so appreciate the support and the love. If you do have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the post. But I hope that you are enjoying all of this. I know I am. Every single question, I'm just like, I have so much to say. I wish we could go till like 3 o'clock in the afternoon and just eat lunch together or something. This has been so great. I so appreciate every one of you being here and sharing all of this juicy information. You're keeping the attendance up. Everyone is loving it. They're here live. For those of you watching on the replay, please hashtag replay so that we know that you are here and that you did watch and you did enjoy. I am handing the mic over to Sophia. Tell us your name, a little bit about you, and your question.
Thank you, Sabrina. Hey, everyone. My name is Sophia Giraldo, and I am your confidence cultivator. I'm so excited to be here. So I'm a boy mom. I have 3 boys, 10, 8, and 6. And what I do, like I said, is I work with women to help them walk in confidence as a lifestyle. I've been in the beauty space for over 15 years. But what a lot of people don't know is that even though I talk about confidence now, that was not always my story. Because in when I was a new mom, when my oldest baby was 7 months old, I had really confidence. And I had gotten up one morning. It was a silent house. And all you moms know that a silent house, when you have a newborn baby, is just like, what's going on here? Like, what is this? So I decided I'm going to get some work done. So I get up, go into my living room, on the couch, pull up my computer, open up my computer, screen TV video. And the search title was World's Hottest. In that moment, my world froze, and my stomach, my throat, and my stomach, and I realized that I was about to start a journey that I didn't anticipate having to go on. What wound up happening was I embarked upon a surreal experience of being married to someone who had a sex addiction. And out of that experience and out of me jumping into recovery, I learned things. I learned how to redefine my beauty, and I learned how to start walking in a way that exuded confidence. We talked about boundaries. We talked about doing things differently. And so I had to learn how to do those things. And that's kind of what I help women to do now. So my question for you ladies is, going through that with children, I had to have a lot of hard conversations. I had to have conversations that I didn't anticipate having when I, was younger and dreamt about having children. Talking things about addiction, we're talking abuse because I went through abuse, we're talking divorce, we're talking all the hard things. So my question is, have you had to have hard conversations with your kids, and how did you frame those things for them? We always talk about appropriate way, but what does that really look like when you have to talk about abuse, when you have addiction? What does that look like for you? Have you had to experience that? So that's my question. Let's see who's gonna go first. Erica, why don't you take it away?
That is such a great question. I first and foremost, I, as similar to some of these women, I've gone through a lot, as well as being a very young mom and not having a family. I was excommunicated from my church and my family at the age of 20. By the time I was 23, had a baby of my own, was raising a child that was not my own. So I think on all of our journeys, we've started off at different places, but we've all gone through some things where when it comes time that they're asking questions, mine was, I can't afford to lie, because so much of what I was living had been based on lies being told to me, or I was telling outwardly or showing picture perfect or whatever were lots of lies. And so I always first and foremost said, okay, I cannot lie to my child. I am not going to lie, nothing. But I'm also not going to use harsh language, and I'm going to word it to the point where I'm comfortable saying this. Now let them ask questions, and then just answer their question. I didn't elaborate. I didn't keep on going. I don't know about you guys, but I have a tendency to talk a lot and wax poetic, and I just want to be like, and tell. So I had to be very, very clear on, what did they just ask me, and I'm going to answer their question, and that's it. Do you have another question? Answer their question. And then as they grew older, the conversations weren't more questions. It was having a real conversation because they were at the age where they could understand. My oldest ones, my first marriage ended because of drug addictions, alcohol addictions, sex addictions, and just destroying our lives. Also, the addiction to not working, like that was an addiction. He just did not want to care, right? So as my kids are growing up and they're still seeing him behave in certain ways, we've been able to have honest conversations, and so they can recognize it and separate the behavior from feelings and emotions. And that's really, really helpful. But they're hard. All of them are hard. And admitting to them, this is a hard conversation, or this is a subject I don't know that you're ready to really, really talk about. And when you get to an older age, this one will come back up. I promise you. But right now, you don't need to worry about it. Be a kid, right? And so really determining how and when to talk about certain things, but always having the open door of, we can talk about anything. Because that was my thing. We weren't allowed to talk about anything. I grew up, nobody talked about anything. We don't talk about that around here. We don't talk about it around this table. That is not a subject we talk about. I mean, we've all heard these things. Or it just was blatantly, nobody ever talked about it. Like, how did nobody ever discuss these things, girl? I was like, I don't remember my parents ever talking about any of this stuff, right? And so just having those raw, open conversations where your daughters can feel comfortable talking about their periods at the dining room table. I mean, I was in front of their siblings and and sharing that and going, "Hey, you guys, we're not going to shame. We're not going to make each other feel bad. This is a good thing to talk about." And then just really staying in that mindset of there's never a wrong question and there's always an answer I can give you. It may not be the answer they want, but there is an answer you can give. So those are some things that I've been working on. I'm still working on them because we're all kind of really still in that mix of things where conversations need to be happening. So I'm working on it every day.
That's really good. Thanks, Erica. That's really good. Having those conversations, just making it normal. Let's see. Go ahead, Maureen.
I as well, was married to a man who had an alcohol addiction and he ended up cheating. And the one thing that I learned as I was raising, my children was it was kind of a need to know basis. And if I thought it was going to harm their self worth, then I would hold back from disclosing too much. And of course, it's always about being age appropriate. How you say it and what you're saying is really age appropriate. And now being a grandmother, my grandchildren have had also sort of a rough upbringing. And so I love that, Erica, you say, as long as those lines of communication are open and welcome and they have a safe space. But it's really interesting. There were things that were going on with my children's father as they were growing up that I didn't disclose. And then as they got older, they sort of were putting pieces together, and then I was able to share more with them. But I love that we can be truthful with our children, but we also have to be careful because as they teach you in the parenting classes, when you get divorced, anything that you say about the other parent is 50% of your child. And so, you have your own internal emotional struggle with what's going on in your life, and you have to be careful not to project that onto your children. And it's a real fine line that we have to be really careful that we walk, but still allow them to have that safe space and to ask those questions. But again, I think, it's a need to know. Did my children need to know, the things that their father was going through? He attempted suicide. He was in a behavioral health unit. And those were things they didn't need to know at that time. He came out of it and he was okay. But later, as they were adults and I knew they could handle all that information, then I could disclose a lot more. So I just think it's, there's a fine line. It's hard as mom, Sophia. I mean, you want them to understand why you can't have this relationship with their father, with their parent, but there's this other side where you're like, you don't want to diminish them so much so they don't have a relationship with that parent. You want to give them that opportunity to make that choice when they are older. And my two older daughters do not have a relationship with their father. And for me, it was really important that they made the choice, that it wasn't because I said all of these negative things about their father and just, word vomited all this crap that he had done. So it turned out for me really, really well. My son has a very shallow, superficial relationship with his father, but he also ended up being a really good man by seeing what his father did wrong. And by helping them make those decisions and perspectives on their own, I think is really helpful. But you can give them the need to know basis. This is why we can't be alone with dad, or this is why I can't have you driving with dad. It's for your safety and I love you. But, without putting so much emphasis on what the other person is doing wrong, but more because I care about you and I love you and I want to keep you safe. And that's my job as your mom. So good question. Good question. Thank you.
Oh, that was good. Yeah. It's very important to me, that honesty that we talked about, talking about things in age appropriate way. And I had some real stuff that, like, we had to transition into a DV shelter. And, when you move, your kids are like, why do we have to leave? So having to say, what, talk about feelings. And sometimes people do things that hurt your heart, and like just having to break it down in a way that they can understand without throwing their father under the bus, like it's important. That was really good. Thanks so much. Anybody else? Okay, Rachel.
The internet went out again. Thank you, Sophia. It's such a great question. And I have two quick examples that I'd like to give, which is, I guess the most important one was when he was about 3, I had to make that tough decision to go out of the marriage. and it was very acrimonious. It was not wanted by the other party. And I was fearful that I would have to fight tooth and nail for my son, right? And anyway, he's with me 8 days and with his dad 6 days. But for the first year or two, I didn't say much. I never said anything negative, but I couldn't really eke out much positive things. And he didn't really want to know. He just knew that daddy and mommy loved each other, and they just have 2 houses because they don't get along, or whatever. I don't even remember. But when he started to become more cognizant and start to ask more questions is when I started to explain to him that his father's the best daddy. I had to let go of my own shit and love on my ex-husband so much so that he had the okay to love on his daddy so much, and that when he goes back and forth, he's equally happy that he's safe in both places. And the best part of that story is that because I could only come from love, right? That over the next couple years, he started to let me back in, my ex-husband. He started to talk to me more. He started to stop nitpicking about the agreements and things like this. And if you fast forward to now, he and I are best friends, and we go through the tough things together. He went through a really, I don't want to give up his anonymity, but we had to go through a procedure in Orlando. The family went there and rented a B&B, and we lived together for a couple of weeks in Orlando while he healed. And he saw us all in the same bed together, because even if I might be a little bit not uncomfortable, but it's not who I'm with anymore, right? But it's more important that the family's together, and he's done that, and he's forgiven, and I've forgiven. And I overheard, I'll leave it with this, the other day he was sitting and talking on the phone and to one of his friends, and the guy was confused that mom and dad were taking Boaz out somewhere, because I guess his parents are divorced and it's not pretty. And Boaz, oh God, my dad sleeps over here. They're besties. They just do everything together. They go out without me. And my heart exploded that it's okay that you can still love someone dearly. But I said, I love him so much. He's the best dad you're ever going to have in your life. But I'm a loner, and I just can't be in that house. But it's not because I don't love him. And so I think it's a fabulous question that we're all talking about. We can overcome, we can do hard things by saying, not what do I have to prove? I don't have to prove why I left or why I did this or why I did that. None of that's important. I'm in recovery, and he sees all kinds of things going on, and he thinks it's cool as crap that mom is always the one that's just there, no matter what everyone's doing and drinking and acting like. He's got his mom. And so for me, those two things are huge for him to be able to grow up and see.
I love that. I love that testimony, Rachel. Thank you so much for sharing it. Kind of brings me back to what Erica said earlier, where she was like, Sabrina, about normal. I so appreciate that, Rachel, because the dynamic that you have with your ex is something that is possible for some couples. And hearing that allows people to realize, like, hey, maybe if I do, similar things to what she did, maybe mine could look like that. Maybe not, but maybe it could. And hearing stuff like that allows us to realize that, our life can shift in different ways, in several different ways. And there is no normal. Everyone's situation is different, and it is possible. I am going to hand the mic over to Charmin.
Hi.
Hello.
I said before that I'm a mom of 5, ages 28, 26, 23, 19, and 16. So I have a junior high school. Yeah.
I'm going to say, make sure you're talking into your mic because you're going in and out.
Oh, so I have to take the headphones out because the mic doesn't work on the headphones.
Oh, okay.
So
well, just maybe get closer because we can hear you, but it's kind of going in and out.
Okay. And so I mostly have young adults and teenagers now. So my question is, like, I was raising as a young mom, my kids, we didn't have, like all the social media and cell phones and everything. And it was so much more simpler than it is now. I'm also a nanny, and I am helping other families, raise children in this technical age, where there's just a lot of everybody has cell phones and things, and iPads. And so it's a whole other way of mothering. I feel like you have a lot more influence and a lot more things coming into your kids, and in a lot of ways it's scarier because they have access, through YouTube and all the different the apps and stuff. And so I was wondering, some of my families, have really strict screen times, and some of them aren't allowing their kids to have cell phones, until like ninth grade or something. And but there's a lot of peer pressure that they're dealing with because their kids come home and they're like, everybody has a cell phone but me. And I was wondering if those of you who have the young or younger kids and and grandkids and stuff, and you're in that phase too, like that was like a question that I have. I think everybody's curious is if we all have similar rules, things like how do you handle this, and those they can compare because you've raised your kids without a lot of this stuff, and now we're just in this whole other world. Erica?
So it is hard because like I've even had to go back and ask my mom, like, I don't get this because I don't know what to tell you. Like honestly, a lot of things that you're having to deal with, I never had to deal with you guys. It was way simpler. It was easier. There wasn't so much influence and things coming into our lives. Um, I think that our rules and guidelines are situational based on each family. Again, no norm, but there should be at least a baseline of what's to what end? What's the purpose of this? To what end are we utilizing this device? And if you're showing good examples, then they're going to follow good examples. And if you're setting good guidelines, then they're going to follow good guidelines. So that really is up to you and what you're doing. But to completely withhold, I think is wrong because you're putting your children at a disadvantage. That is just the bottom line. Suck it up, guys. The world is tech savvy. And if you want your children to succeed, they are going to have to be. And it will be a disservice to them because they won't be prepared to prepare for life. This is part of our job now. We have to include this as part of what we're doing. We need it included. We did an entire year online, on school, on the computer, like without a human being actually really talking to them very often. Like it is what it is. And so to keep fighting it, you're actually deterring your children from really getting into the scope of like, this is life now. So how can I utilize it responsibly? How can it not be a distraction in life? How can it actually help me in life? And really start addressing those um, issues in yourself, because then I think that helps us give guidelines to our kids um, and determine what you're okay with. But I mean, a lot of times they're going to behave the way that they see you behaving. So they're like, well, yeah, my friends have all these things, but so do you. And every time I talk to you, you're on that thing or you're doing that thing and it's on your phone, and they don't get it that well, I'm working. No, you're not. You're just on your electronics. No, I'm working. No, you're not, mom. You're just on your electronic. They're working too, right? Like I get the we're having all the conversations. Um, and then being consistent. I mean, that's been my biggest thing is I do times where it's horrible and it's like they've had it all day and who cares? Really, in the long run, who cares? And some days it's like, okay, no, let's build in some more consistency. I look at the season too. It's winter time. And I don't know about you, but there's not much to do when it's freaking freezing cold. So is there balance? Are they still accomplishing what their jobs are? Like, is if they are, then that's their free time. And if that's what they choose to do with their free time, who am I as a human being to tell them they can't be interested in that? That'd be like telling somebody they can't paint, they can't do those things. And to them, that's just the same as what we grew up with. It really is to them. And so again, it goes back to we just need to give ourselves a break. First of all, give ourselves guidelines, no safety things. I mean, there's courses you can take as a parent to kind of really know what's okay, what's not, and then just let it go and stop giving yourself a hard time about it. But the reality is they need tech, and they're to fight it is just to put your child at a disservice. So just know what level you want in your household.
Maureen?
I love this question because, Charmin, you and I understand now that we have older children, the integration of technology and the advancements. So it started out with my kids on dial-up with Oregon Trail, and my grandchildren, my one granddaughter, she's been using an iPad since she was 1 year old. I mean, so, it's one of those, you can fight it or you can embrace it. And I have 2 words. It's trust and monitoring. So trust that your children understand what the expectations are and monitor where they can go. And I think technology can be great. I mean, as a Gen Xer myself, I'm having a hard time with technology, but I know it's something I need for my business. Before COVID, I did face-to-face coaching, loved it, and thought, oh, the energy is great. And then COVID happened, and I'm like, oh man, I got to do this whole video thing, and I don't think it's going to be the same, and something's going to be missing. And so I'm learning to embrace it, but this is their generation. This is the norm, and I'm using the norm world because the norm word, because it is the norm for them. But I also like what you said, Erica, about the creativity. So to see my 8-year-old granddaughter do Animal Farm and be creative, and she's really interested in being a video game creator at 8 years old. I wanted to be a ballerina, for crying out loud. So to see the advancement and the intelligence at such a younger age, because they do have to figure it out. And what I love is there's a lot of problem solving involved. I'm one of these, I click on the computer and it better work. And if it doesn't, I want to beat my head against the computer and throw it. But my grandkids are like, oh, grandma, it's really easy. Just do this and do this and do this. So I think it's instilled a lot of problem solving skills. And then my 14-year-old grandson lives with me now, and he's got a lot of anxiety. And for him, that's an outlet. And, he does other things outside. I encourage a balance. So I don't want him sitting on video games all the time, but he's a skateboarder. He plays drums in the band. But I also know there's a time in the evening where he has a hard time sleeping, and this is a good outlet. And the advancement is from Atari in my day to now they can talk to people and interact socially. So that's the piece I think I've always worried about with electronics was, are they missing the social interaction? And I can see that they're not, because they're doing Roblox and they're, with their friends. So the social piece, technology has gotten to where we can sort of integrate all of it. So I think technology is great as long as it's like anything else. Too much of a good thing is too much. So everything in moderation. But I think it's a necessity for this generation to be the scientists and the engineers and the creators that they are, to have this exposure, obviously, to technology. But we just have to watch and monitor. So thanks. Miss Sabrina.
The rule that I've had with my son, I still remember the day that I took off the parental rules that you have on your kid's phone, so they can't do certain things. I don't remember how old he was, but I remember the day that I had to take his phone and turn all those off, because he's just like, I'm old enough now. I should be able to do all the things now, Mom. That's enough of that. And my heart just hurt. But my son is actually, I call him my IT guy. He knows all the things computers. He's helped me out so much. So I appreciate it. But the rule that I have with my son is I will always trust you until you give me a reason not to trust you. And that is a continuous rule in our home. Thank you. And I repeat it, consistently whenever it comes up. And he knows that. And I can say, again, not saying that this is normal, but for real, I have actually never looked at my kids' phones. My kids' phone. I know that most parents are like, you need to go through the messages and you need to blah, blah, blah. And I get that. And I agree with that. I'm not disagreeing with any of that, but I've actually never done that. And I don't know if that's good or bad. I guess we'll find out one day, but I trust him. I trust him fully. I make sure that he knows that I trust him fully. And again, it's an experiment, right? It's an experiment. I don't know. But if I continue to tell him that I trust him, if I continue to tell him that I trust him until, there will be rules once you are in not doing things respectfully. And we'll see how we'll come back together in 5 years and I'll let you know how it worked out. But that's where I am right now at 17 years old. So.
Sophia?
That's Sabrina. So I have 3 boys, and this was a hard, just because of my personal story, this was a hard thing for me I realized, like, going in, like, oh my God, I have boys. They're going to love technology. And then as things are different now, this is how they socialize, when they had to be on, that's what they were doing. Their friends were there, everything. And so I had to figure out, what can I have around this, hang on, and let them hang on. It was really challenging for me. And so what I'm doing was just making sure, like we talked about, safety, making sure they know what's safe, what's, and we had a nice family, conversation about and what they also know that I'm in their business. Like, I'm one of those parents. They'll be in, different parts of the house. I walk around. What are you watching? And they know, like, they know if mommy's always monitoring, mommy's making sure that they're safe, then they need to be responsible. And so I do love the fact that they're learning so much and they're using technology to learn. Like, my little guy, I mean, he had to learn how to navigate Zoom, and he can open up the computer and he knows what to do. Mommy, I don't need your help. And I'm like, okay. I really have enjoyed seeing the way technology has been integrated into their lives, and I just own, I guess, triggers, you can call them, around them, and just help, like I said, what's safe, what's appropriate, and that they can have fun with technology. Now, I will say my oldest one, he wants a phone, and I'm like, I'm not ready for that yet. Talk to me in a couple years. I don't know. We'll see, because all of his friends, he's in middle school, and all his friends have phones. My parent, like, I don't know. So we'll see. But it has been an interesting time. So.
Rachel?
You're on mute.
It does that every time I lose you guys. Sorry. Because of the divorce, my son had a phone very early because I wanted to be able to communicate with him privately during the time that we were still trying to get along. And so he's had it forever. In fact, this morning he got up early and came down here and set up my computer and got everything live and went into my emails. And I said, I'm not sure where the link is. Sabrina gave like 6 links. He goes, Mom, I got it. And he went in and he went to my emails and clicked he goes, no, she set you up right here. And then he clicks it on and he gets everything ready to go. And he helps me out with technology a lot. And he's 12. And so the good part of that is that you're right. His brain, do you women feel that their brains are wiring differently than ours? Like, they see the world differently. They're seeing more 5D than we are because of the way that they've grown up. But I did, since he was about 4 years old on, he knew exactly what to do online. I had and this is important, I'll try and keep it quick. My friend's kid was going online on the internet, and it turns out she had gone into a chat room that was for pedophiles. And she's like 9 or 10, and she's talking back and forth, and the parents think she's playing Roblox. And she was very close to having that guy come into the house because she was so close to giving out her address. And somehow the mother saw it. But right from the beginning, my son knew, and he plays on the TV, so I hear him a lot. Someone will say something to him and he goes, can't say. How old are you? Can't say. What's your last name? Can't say. Where are you from? Can't say. He just can't say all day long. And it's built into his curriculum now. And then as far as his phone, I'm like Sabrina. I've never checked it. I don't want to. We have so much trust and honesty between us. And I tell him, I have the ability to check this at any given time. I've got all your passwords. I've got everything. So if I get too suspect, know that I will find out what you're doing. And so that kind of trust and mothering at the same time is really tricky, but you can do it if you have that kind of open relationship with your kids, which it sounds like you have.
And I do want to say for Rachel and I, we only have one child.
Yes.
So, I want to add that in there. It's a little bit different when you're trying to like juggle 2 or 6, as some of you have. So our story is a little bit different than I think a lot of moms out there. But yes, 100%. Listen, thank you, Charmin. I so appreciate every single one of you that popped on today to hang out and talk motherhood. This has been absolutely phenomenal. I appreciate, as always, for those of you that were able to stay past my allotted time of 11 o'clock. I think this has happened every single time. So I appreciate all of you that are hanging out a little bit after with us to close this up. For those of you that are still watching live, oh my gosh, we still have people watching live. Thank you so much for supporting us and listening in. For those of you watching on replay, make sure you hashtag replay so that we know that you are here and that you listened and that you're supporting the channel. As always, like, subscribe, share, and let everyone know that we're here. We're here and we're sharing the message of mental and emotional health within the woman culture. Woman culture. I just made that up. Sounds fabulous to me. Anyways, thank you so much for joining us here on Her Version. This community is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you follow, like, and share. If you have an amazing story to share of struggle to triumph, be sure to reach out to me here or at herversion.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others. Until next time, do something awesome today.